Welcome back. This is the week you missed. You missed more like 10 days or so. So it's like a week and a half you missed. It is May 17th. Beautiful morning finally in Philadelphia. I'm sure it's beautiful in North Carolina too. We got election day in Philly, election day in PA. I'm sure there's other states going as well. It's supposed to be an important day. We'll maybe talk about that in a little bit. But first, the craziest news, what I think of the week. It is absolutely horrible news. It was devastating. I actually saw part of the clips and the videos, and I regret it a lot because it was pretty traumatic. But the shooting in Buffalo, we have this guy, Peyton, shouldn't be named, sucks dick Gendron. And basically this kid is super racist, super anti-Semitic, which wasn't actually like talked about as much, I guess, because Jews didn't get killed, but he is very anti-Semitic, and he basically drove 2 hours away from where he lived to kill people in Buffalo. We could talk about shootings all the time. They happen way too often in America. I think there's like been 400 this year already, which is devastating. It's horrible. I want to kind of get into like some more specifics though of this. So basically, I'll give you kind of two questions to start with. We'll see which one gravitates with you, and then we'll go from there. But how do you fix this situation or these types of situations? Because it seems like it's just happening more and more often, and it's getting worse and worse. And are we just going to let it get worse and worse, or is there actually a solution to try and fix these? And then another question is kind of like, how do you get this off of social media and off of the internet? And how do you really, like, twofold, how do you stop these groups from harvesting and developing these people who are inclined to do wild things? But then also, once they do these wild things, how do you kind of delete it? Do you censor it to get it off the internet? Because I'm not really a fan of censorship, but I also like kind of wish I didn't see this video yesterday. It was pretty bad. And like, what do you think? How do you solve that? How do you navigate that?
So to your first question, what was it? It was
how do you fix this situation? Because it's just getting worse and worse.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So, the thing, and I feel like it's getting I've seen it discussed in most news articles, but it's not being focused on. This guy was on law enforcement's radar. He got institutionalized for threatening to shoot up his school.
Here's the thing though. I went to a school about 500 kids per grade, so 2,000 kids school. I can know of about 3 or 4 kids in my grade alone who people are like, yo, that kid's crazy. He's going to shoot the school. And none of them did. So it's like, I get that there was a warning, the FBI saw it, but are we going to then react to every single warning and have investigations into every single kid that's weird and might exhibit some signs of doing something?
There's a difference between sort of that weird, quiet kid where people would joke, because we had him too in our kid. We had him in college. It was like, yeah, don't be nice to him so you don't get shot up when they come into school. Like, that was like, I can't count the number of times I heard that. But none of those kids ever got looked into by local law enforcement. None of those kids ever got institutionalized because they made a serious threat. I guess part of my point here is that in order to start stopping these things, like, I think law enforcement needs to step up, or we need to find a better way to say, okay, if there's someone who is demonstrating that they are mentally volatile or that they end up being committed, that needs to be something that maybe stops you from buying a gun. And it actually,
or even not maybe even a gun, although I hate to like that we're veering and just allowing so much, but like, what about no assault rifles and tactical gear and helmets and all that? Because I'm pretty sure this guy got shot by the security guard, and you'd think it still would have been a horrible tragedy, and there probably still would have been 3 or 4 deaths, I'd imagine. But if the security guard actually shot him and was able to stop him, this would have been a way better situation. And it got way worse because this guy had like military tactical gear. He was ready to do as much as he possibly could. So like, should that be allowed?
Look, I'm a big 2A guy. So yeah, no, I think civilians should be able to own body armor. I think you should be able to buy a Kevlar helmet. I think you should be able to buy an AR-15. Look, I take the stance, and I will defend it, that guns don't kill people. Crazy people like this asshole kill people. And look, you see it in other countries that, in London or in Paris, you've had attacks where people are running around with machetes or knives and they're taking people out. I think in Israel, Some people were attacked with like machetes or knives recently and killed as part of the recent intifada that's going on there. So I think that, you know, yes, guns obviously make it much easier to rack up numbers, and it's fucking terrible. But, you know, we live in a society where the Second Amendment is a thing. And unless we repeal the Second Amendment, guns aren't going anywhere. So we need to figure out a way to address this with the understanding that people will still have open and basically free access to firearms as long as they're not convicted felons. And actually, to bring something up, it was interesting because people all the time are like, well, if you have mental health issues, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun, and you should be on some registry if you've had a serious enough mental incident on your record. And you know what? I agree with that. I would back that as someone who has donated to the NRA, as someone who has, you know, owns many guns and is a strong Second Amendment supporter. I would support that law. Now, the thing is, when they tried to pass that in an unholy, weird alliance, I believe, if I recall correctly, the ACLU and the NRA teamed up to fight that regulation and law, basically stating that it was a privacy issue and that you can't deprive people from constitutional rights based on basically what is a medical issue, a mental health issue. You know, I sort of understand that from a principle standpoint, but I think at the end of the day, functionally, especially with what we're seeing happening, like, look, if there's some, like, look, if you go to a because you're like a little bit depressed, I think you should be able to buy a gun. If you make a credible threat against your school to the point where you're involuntarily committed, you know, maybe you don't get to buy guns for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's a fine line though. Then who's the judge? You know what I mean? That's the hard part, is that who's gonna say, how depressed are you? Oh, you're that depressed, then you can't get a gun. But if you're only a little depressed, you can get a gun.
100%.
That's a tough one.
But
so
I mean,
is there a way to fix this, or do you think it definitely seems like it's going to continue happening and get worse and worse and more common? Will there ever be a breaking point where it stops, or is that just like part of life? It's just going to happen.
I think from a realistic standpoint, it's just part of life and it's going to happen. Like, if I'm just speaking as a realist, 100%. And now, but the thing is, I think that, and I'm going to speak sort of broadly and sort of globally here. Look, I think the thing that will stop this is better family structures, better community structures, better integration between humans and interacting with each other and sort of diverse communities, like not being able to, you know, squirrel yourself away in a basement and just go down deep, dark, racist rabbit holes online. Like, you know, that was your other question about, can we censor this stuff, or can we, you know, stop people from getting in touch with this type of content? No, I don't think you can, because you know what? You can do whatever you want. You can start banning stuff on Facebook. These people will just move to Telegram groups or Signal groups. They'll start actually using the actual dark web, which I think
should
people
Twitch have left the video up?
Huh?
Should Twitch have left the video up?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't leave it up. Like, I treat that like Twitch is a for-profit company. Like, they shouldn't leave it up. Like, there would be more of an argument to say if this guy somehow like published it in like C-SPAN or some sort of like public broadcasting system, that an archived copy should be available, because like, but no, I don't think they should have left it up. I think it's gross and disgusting, and it's violence porn. And you know, I don't think there's any benefit to it, but at the same time, I know you truly really can't scrub anything from the internet completely. You can make it harder to find, but you can't completely get rid of things once it's sort of gone widespread. But I think, you know, it's weird because I don't know if you saw this, but his family came out and made a statement basically being like, well, he was super isolated during COVID and went down a rabbit hole and just sort of turned into this monster, and people dismiss that. But like, look, I think that's a bullshit excuse. I'm not gonna say bullshit excuse. I think it's an excuse, but I think it does ring true as an explanation. And I was saying this over a year ago to people when I talked to them, that I guarantee you we are going to see an increase in school shootings over the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years, because we just had a whole lot of kids that went through an incredibly isolating and traumatizing experience that is going to fuck with the way their heads work. And once some of those kids start getting their hands on guns, it's going to get bad.
Yeah, and that's only the beginning of it. There's a million other problems that are happening at the same time that might just make things worse. Like, online bullying is only getting worse and worse. Food shortages and food scarcity is only getting worse and worse. So all of that stuff just adds stress to kids' lives. And how are they going to react? It probably won't be good.
I mean, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, when my wife and I talk about raising kids, I legit have said like, if we have kids or when we have kids, I would support moving to like a rural village in Mexico that has decent internet where, you know, her and I can work online and support the family, but like where the kids won't think it's weird if they don't have access to a cell phone, or like they can just run around and like play at a beach and like learn about nature and, you know, be tutored or go to a school or whatever. Like, I don't know how you protect children in a modern society from this absolutely poisonous influence, because it's a fine line between restricting their access to content and then also being viewed as someone that's like a tyrannical parent that's not letting your kid have a cell phone until they're 16. Because that's the other thing I've seen. It's, you know, people are like, well, kids shouldn't have cell phones or access to the internet freely until they're 16 or 17. It's like, well, look, that's just not realistic. It's going to make them a social outcast in other ways, which might spin them in another direction, because yeah, they're not getting exposed to stuff online, but everyone's calling them a loser and a weirdo because they don't understand what a meme is or don't understand the next TikTok dance or like whatever. And it's like, you know, so I don't know. I mean, I'm not super like optimistic about it, but at the same time, like, I feel like maybe the pendulum will start to swing back a little bit of saying, like, you know what, honestly, I think if I was going to institute any broad solution, it would be that children, you would not be able to access social media freely until you're 18. I don't know. Like if I'm looking like your access to the internet is limited to like white-listed academic science.
Why white-listed? Why not blacklisted? No.
Can't win.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Or it's like you're allowed to see stuff, but you're monitored. And like when you go to 4chan, it rings a bell or something so that people are looking at you. Because
if someone's 14 and goes to 4chan, the computer should shock them. Like it should literally give them like a 5,000 volt shock. Like
that place is toxic. It's that's as crazy as it gets. But I'm done talking about guns. That's sad. I don't want to. Unfortunately, it's gonna happen again sooner rather than later. But for now, I want to stop talking about it, and hopefully, we have a couple of days of just quietness. But what do you got for us?
I mean, let's talk about the elections that are going on. I know you brought up, and I find it super interesting. So I think Pennsylvania is probably going to be more interesting than North Carolina, because you've got this crazy Republican primary going on with Dr. Oz of all people.
Dr. Oz, he's not even from Pennsylvania. That's what I don't get, is how is this guy? He's not from Pennsylvania. He bought a house here to claim residence so that he could run.
Look, that's been going on for a while. Hillary Clinton moved to New York, like 18 months before she ran for Senate? Like,
yeah, Hillary Clinton isn't someone people should admire to be with. Like,
I completely agree. But at the same time, like, look, there's a lot to criticize him over, but like the whole carpetbagger thing of like, well, you're not really from here. Like that's old and tired.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. But I just don't get it. It's like, why is this guy coming to this state? Like, it makes no sense. It's all these egotistical people who just want power, it seems. But it seems like he has a good shot, and Donald Trump is back at him, which I think makes this more of a show for everyone, because people are trying to see, is Donald Trump still in control of the Republican Party, or has he kind of lost his power?
Well, what do you think of Fetterman? Because I know online and on Reddit and everything, like, people fucking suck that guy's dick. They absolutely love him.
I like him. I mean, I don't like any politicians really, and I'm not going to say like he's the man. He's got some good policies that I do like, and he's not as ridiculous as some of the far left people of like free this, everything. So we'll see. I do know he got a stroke. Did you hear he had a stroke yesterday?
Yes. No, I did. I was just going to bring that up, and I feel
he got a stroke. I personally, and I feel bad saying this. I'm sure people are like, "Oh, that's messed up. You can't think this," but like, I kind of want people in power who are like are very well taken care of, and it's like I feel like that kind of plays into historically in presidential elections. I'm sure all elections, like the person who looks better physically kind of wins a lot of the time, and like that shouldn't matter at all. But to me, health does matter. And it's like, if someone, obviously your genes affect your health, and you can't affect your genes that much, but I'd want someone who's in control of my territory, my state, to be in good shape and in control of themselves and disciplined and healthy. One, I don't want them to die in the middle of a term, but also like if they take care of themselves, I'm confident they'll take care of what's around them as well. But if it doesn't look like they're taking care of themselves, it kind of makes me lose some confidence. And I know that might be wrong a little bit, but that's personally how I feel.
No, and look, I think there's something to that. I think, you know, and I think the Fetterman question will be very interesting. I think if it'll be such a weird race. It's Dr. Oz versus John Fetterman. Because I think apparently Dr. Oz did really poorly, I think, in the debate that happened. And then he also got this sort of surge from behind candidate, Kathy Barnett or whatever, excuse me, who was sort of like a MAGA person, but Trump hasn't endorsed her. And she's been getting attacked from the right and the left, which honestly, like, as weird as it sounds, if I'm just like thinking about things in a vacuum, if anything's going to make me like someone, the fact that they're taking a lot of heat from the right and the left establishments,
it's probably a good sign.
Make me be like, all right, I'll give you a shot. And like, and I've not been following the race. I don't vote in Pennsylvania anymore, so I'm not super involved in it. But like, you know, it's something. It's like, look, if the establishment parties on both sides are like, this person is terrible, I'm at least like, my interest is piqued. Like, I'm like, what's up with this person? Why do all the people that I dislike hate this person? You know, maybe they're right. Maybe she is nuts. I don't know.
So here's someone I dislike. I'm gonna change the direction of this a little bit. It's still about the election, but someone that I dislike the most in the election today is running for PA Congress 03. Her name is Alex Hunt. If you say quick enough, it's Alex Hunt. And she is an old sex worker, stripper, and that's literally all she talks about in her campaign, which I have no problem with sex workers. I've supported them plenty, but that's not someone that I want to be in charge of stuff. Like, I don't know, it's cool. And it's okay if you're a sex worker and you're in charge, that's fine. But I want to hear about your policies. What are you going to do to make the city better? Literally all she talks about, if you go to her TikTok, her first 3 TikToks are all about being a sex worker and a stripper and how she is just as good as everyone else. And it's like, yeah, you are just as good as everyone else, but tell us about your policies. What are you going to do to make things better? And it's like not there. And it's sad that that's what politics is now. You got Madison Cawthorn's wheeling around, and Marjorie Taylor running around. And it's like, these people have no policies, nothing of substance. They're just loud on social media and they get people cheering, and that's why they're in power. But that's like, I didn't think that's what we should be voting for and wanting to govern us.
Yeah, you know what, I'm pulling up because I've been browsing since you mentioned her. I've been browsing some interviews with her, and like, there's really nothing about where she stands on anything, and
it's all about being a stripper.
Well, she does actually have, you know, an issues page on her website, and you know, you're involved in education, so let's see. Education is the backbone of a healthy democracy. Alexandra will push for equity-driven and student-focused education policies to invest in our public schools, pay our teachers a livable wage, make educational buildings safe, and make schools the center of thriving communities. Great.
Yeah, I like that, but I want to hear more. Like, how's that happen?
How do you pay for that?
Yeah, how do you pay for that? Everything's like free. We want more and more and more. And it's like, where does this come from? And then 2, it's like, I don't know too much about her. I went to 2 of the same schools that she went to. I got 2 degrees from Temple, just like her, and I got a master's degree from Drexel, just like her. So like, I don't want to say she's stupid because she's following like a very similar path to me, but it's like, yo, do you know about the economy? Have you ever saved money? Have you ever budgeted for something more than $10,000? Have you ever like managed a group of 100 people? Those are important skills you need to run a city or to run a district. And it's like, you might have those skills, but that's what I want to hear about. That's what I want to know about. What makes me confident in you running us? And there should be more talk about, your economics, your socialist or sociology thoughts and things of substance that are going to actually matter.
Hey, but you know what? Actually, I'm browsing her issues page, and this I know you'll find super interesting and probably love her for it. Alexandra has worked to help homeless who formed an encampment on JFK Boulevard and would dedicate herself to ending homelessness and protecting hardworking renters from unjust evictions. Great.
Yeah. So where are they gonna go? And what are you gonna do for them? And like that whole encampment was a disaster. There was someone who died there. Like it wasn't good. And people say like, oh yeah, this was great. It's like, no, it wasn't. And how is that gonna solve things? But that's the type of person she is. And like, to me, it's unfortunate. She's getting a lot of support because she's loud on social media, and people like social media. They like being loud, but that's not who I want to govern me.
Hey, look, you'll also like this under freedom of religion. It says Alexandra is committed to fighting against the threat of anti-Semitism, white nationalism, and Islamophobia. How do you think she'll view Israel, Jeremy? Where do you think she stands on that?
Yeah, no, she's definitely against Israel. Like that's for sure. And yeah, it's all backwards.
You know, it's of course, you know, she doesn't want you killed because you're Jewish, but the Jewish state shouldn't exist, I'm sure, right? I mean, because exactly. Somehow Israel existing is anti-Semitism, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And somehow she has a firm understanding of it, just being a stripper with no global experience, no corporate experience. Like, how am I supposed to believe her with her experience? I don't get it.
I mean, is she actually possibly going to win?
She's doing very well. She had a $500,000 budget, or like campaign budget, as of March. So probably quite a bit more. She's working to unseat an incumbent who's Black and who has like a lot of wealthy donors. So that's like her biggest obstacle, is like Philadelphia is obviously historically going to be Black. And also Philadelphia is pretty big on incumbents. Like once you're in, it's pretty hard to get out unless people hate you, because they just like, they see you've been there for 10 years. They go, oh, they weren't that bad. So they just vote you in another year.
Yeah, no, well, look, and incumbents always have an incredibly outsized advantage just based on statistics, historical trends, etc. So, she'll probably lose. Frankly, I mean, at this point, I hope she wins, because at this point, I'm just sort of all for rooting for just our politics to be exposed for the insanity and ridiculousness that it is. Like, I feel like, I and I'm not trying to make myself out to be some sort of oracle, but like, I thought that our politics was insane and broken and bullshit 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And, the fact that it is now being shown to be ridiculous because of these insane, idiotic demagogues that we elect into office, like, good. Maybe it'll make other people see it. Maybe it'll make people realize we shouldn't be putting such trust in these people. Like, if what
I don't know how people aren't seeing that right now. Like, everything is so backwards. I don't know how people still believe that this is like a great system that we're working with right now.
Look, we need to defund the federal government. We need to put money back in the states, in the hands of individual states to run themselves more locally, and probably shave off 3 or 4, executive branch departments that are pointless. And maybe if our government just keeps getting stupider and stupider, we'll eventually be able to do that. So I'm all for it. I'm here for it.
Hell yeah, I'm here for it too. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about it next week. We'll let you know what the results are. Maybe I'll ask Alex Cunt to be on the show, and that could be very interesting.
I wonder if you could like pay for a cam session through OnlyFans as a way to get her.
Dude, that's not a bad idea. I'm going on right now actually after the show, and I'm subscribing, and we're gonna work to get Alex Cunt on the show.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right.
Well, another great week that we missed. Hopefully this next week is a little bit more tame, because I'm tired. This shit's crazy, but it probably won't tame down. It's probably gonna just get crazier and crazier. At least I have Todd to talk to and bring me down, stabilize me, ground me, and make me feel a little sane for a half hour a week. But that's all I got. Todd, you got any closing thoughts?
No, sir. Been great talking as always.
All right. Peace out. See you next week. Much love.